Hello students, we were doing chapter 7, Climate and Adaptation. Our next topic is factors that affect the climate of a place. The first point in this is distance from the equator. Different parts of the earth receive different amount of the heat of the sun. The amount of the heat received depends upon the distance of the latitude from the equator. So, the amount of the heat which received by the earth's surface depends upon the distance of the latitude from the equator. The place located at high altitudes receives less sunlight than than those of the low altitude. Okay, the places near the equator receives more sunlight. As we move above the altitude, the height increases, so it receives less sunlight. Due to the curved surface of the earth, the sun ray spreads over a great surface area at high altitude than at the equator. The rays also have to travel greater thickness of atmosphere to reach high latitude. Okay, on the plain the air is thick, but at high altitudes the air is thin. At the plane surface the air is thick, so it absorbs more heat, but at higher latitudes the air is thick, it does not absorb more heat, so the climate at that place will be cooler than the place at low altitudes. High altitudes receive less sunlight, resulting in the cold climate. The tilt and its yearly orbit around the sun also contribute the temperature change. Okay, this is also one of the factor, tilt of the earth and its yearly orbit around the sun also contribute the temperature change. High altitude receives less sunlight as it is above the sea level, and which results in the cold climate. The maximum sunlight is received at equator, making the area near the equator warm. So maximum sunlight receives at the equator, which makes the area near to the equator very warm. Height above the sea level. This is the second factor, that is the height above the sea level. The climate of the place is influenced by the height of the place above the sea level, which is known as altitude. Altitude is nothing but height of the place above the sea level. Okay, we see different climates mainly in the mountains and plain. Mountains are cooler as the air is thin and it is not able to absorb and retain heat. I have told you that mountains have a temperature which is very less. Why? Because the air is thin and it is not able to absorb or retain heat. But the plain areas are warmer than mountains as the air is thick and absorbs and retain more amount of heat. Next, adaptation of animals due to different climate. Animals living in different climate adjust themselves to survive there by adopting special character. These characters are called as adaptation. Animals living in different climate. For example, if we take camel, it lives in the desert. This camel has adjusted, all the camels have adjusted themselves to survive there in the desert area. They have a special characters that they store the food and the fat in the hump. And these characters are called as adaptation. The first one is hot, tropical and temperate climate. Tropical climates are very hot, humid, while the temperate climate are quite warm. In tropical climate, there is abundant rainfall, considerable amount of sunshine. Animals living in these climates adapt and cope with the heat. So animals which are living in this type of climate, they are adapted to the heat. Like first example, elephants have large ears that help to radiate the heat from the body. They can swim to cool off the extreme hot weather and also uses the trunk to sprinkle the water on their body. Okay, they have the tongue which help them to sprinkle the water on the body. They can swim. The large ears of the elephant help to bear the heat. Similarly, lions and tigers usually live in the closer to the water bodies, which stay cooler and swim off during the day. They live near the water bodies so that they can swim and keep their body cool. Some animals are nocturnal to avoid the heat of the day. They are active during the early hours of the night and sleep in the burrows in the daytime to escape the heat. Some animals, they sleep in the day and they are active in the night so that they can escape the heat. And some animals sleep for throughout the summer months. Some animals sleep throughout the summer month. Um, these long summer sleep is called as estivation. So what they do, they sleep for the summers and they work in the winters. Okay, some animals have these characters. Next, extremely cold climate. The polar region are the farthest distance from the equator and receives least amount of sunlight. The temperature are freezing throughout the year. The soil is covered with the snow and thick layer of ice in most of the areas. Animals found in extremely cold climates are polar bear, Arctic fox, penguin, whale, etc. So, polar region are away from the equator. Near the poles, the temperature is cold. Why? Because they receive less amount of the heat from the sun. So, there is always snow. The soil is covered with the snow and thick layer of ice. And which the animals which are found there are polar bear, Arctic fox. They can bear that cold climate. Next, migration. Animals such as caribou, which are able to cope up with the cold climate, migrate to the warmer places such as Alaskan forest during the winter months. Snow geese fly away to Japan, and Arctic tern fly away to Antarctica to breed. Many of the animals from the cold polar region can go to the warmer place either for breeding or so that they can live in the warmer place. Okay, this is called as migration. Next, hibernation. Hibernation is the process of remaining in an inactive state for a certain animals in the cold climate during the winters. So they are in the inactive state. They are in the sleepy state in the cold climate during winters. Hibernation protects the animals from the cold and reduces the need of food and food when the food is scarce. When the food is less, what they do, the animals sleep, they hibernate so that they can uh, 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 they protect themselves, so they can protect themselves from the cold. The animals that can hibernate during the winter are polar bear, skunks, etc. These are the animals which hibernate, like they go for the deep sleep for the 6 months during the cold. They eat the food during the summers, and this food which is in the form of fat, which is in the form of fat which is stored in their body, they utilize the fat for the working of the system during when they go for the sleep. Next, polar bear have a wide range of large paws which help them to swim and walk on the snow. They also they can close their nostrils while under the water and stay for a long time. So polar bear have a paws which help them to swim in the water, walk on the snow. They can close their nostril and swim in the water for the long time. The They have a strong sense of smell and can identify the prey from a huge distance. The thick layer of the fur in the polar bear isolate them from the cold. They have a thick layer of fur which help them to keep them warm. They have a thick layer of fat which is called as blubber under the skin which help them to keep them warm. The long white fur of Arctic fox, commonly called as snow fox, fox camouflages it from the predator and protect it from the cold. Arctic fox have a white fur which protect them from the cold. During the warmer month, the coat color changes to brown, bending with the environment. Their fur color changes to the brown which help them to cope up with the environment. The small round ears, nose, paws of the fox help them to prevent the heat loss from the body. Next, hot and dry climate. Hot and dry climate have a very high temperature during most of the part of the year. Winter lasts for few months, during which the temperature is quite low. The region receives very little rainfall and have the typical desert climate. So this is hot and dry climate. Hot and dry climate, the word hot and dry means they have high temperature throughout the year, and only winters which are last for only few months. During that the temperature is very less and they receive very little rainfall. This is they have a typical desert climate. Many reptiles and other animals protect themselves from the extreme temperature by spending their time in the burrows during the day and become active at the night. So many of the reptiles, what they do, they are active during the night, and during the day they go for the sleep. Some animals such as rat, tortoise cannot cope up the heat, so undergo the summer sleep to escape the heat. They go for the sleep during the summers and they are active in the winters. Kangaroo rats spend the day in the burrows where the air is moist and humid. So many of the animals, they also spend the day in the burrows, so that where the air is moist and humid. So this is about the hot and dry climate, and this is the adaptation topic. So till here your chapter has been completed. Thank you.